Sorted. Lovely. I think we've got everyone here. I can see we've got 16 people in the session. Hannah, would you like me to start, or shall we wait for a few more to join?
You can get going, yeah.
Okay, lovely. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today here in the workshop for the P-World Health Assembly. And we are joined by a wonderful panel of guests and eminent nurses, midwives and colleagues from across the globe who are here to discuss a hugely important topic, which is research. So many of you in the audience may already be undertaking research, you may have an established career, or you may be starting out. So we are hopeful that today will offer you something for everyone. You will be informed. And I can already see Abigail Jones, who I met yesterday in the networking event from Guy's and St Thomas's, and Zipporah, who I met yesterday in the networking event. So great to see you and other colleagues. My name's Aisha Holloway. I'm the Professor of Nursing Studies at Edinburgh University, and I love research. So I think maybe that's why I've been allowed to come here today. But let's get the ball rolling. We've got some great contributors. So we're going to look at the role of the nurse and midwives in research, the experience of nurses in research and product development, so a little bit of entrepreneurship there. And then we're going to hear about some examples of nurses and midwives who are leading research. And then at the end, Dr. Mark Orne is going to host a Q&A session, so question and answer. So that will be your opportunity to engage with the panel and ask your burning questions and find out a little bit more. And remember, the panel here, after this session, please reach out to them. If there's something else you want to follow up with them, if you want to engage or you want to be involved, they will definitely be willing to engage with you. So let's get things started. We have, first of all, Professor Rosie Neefsey. Rosie, I hope I've said your name correctly. And Rosie is the director for the Centre for Healthcare Research at Coventry University. So a UK speaker to begin with. Rosie, take the floor.
Thank you, Aisha. Hello, everybody. It's really nice to be here at this really special event. I'm going to give you a little talk that really is giving a bit of insight into my journey as a nurse and how I got involved in research and some of the experiences that have shaped my journey and what I'm doing now. I have got a few slides to share, and I'm hoping that Andrea will share them for me. And what you'll hopefully get is some maybe ideas for yourself or ideas to help others with their research journey. So, yes, so I work at Coventry University now, and it's a wonderful university with so many opportunities, and we're doing some really interesting work here. But it is actually my third university that I've worked at. I used to work at Salford University and Birmingham University. And I guess it's really about saying that your career can be a long career in nursing, whether that's in clinical or education or research. And I think that's the wonderful thing about our professions is that we've got this diversity and all the different opportunities to do interesting work. So I'm talking to you at the moment as the director for the Centre for Healthcare Research, but I'm also the strategic lead for the Centre for Care Excellence for Nursing, Midwifery and Allied Health. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So I want to start with my beginnings, I suppose. If we move on to the next slide. So this was not planned, Aisha. I have a Edinburgh University logo here. I'm actually an alumni of Edinburgh University, and I guess that's where my research career began. I had a very deep and challenging research education in my first degree at Edinburgh University. And I look back now with real true appreciation for the faculty staff who really did push us as student nurses to really think critically and to ask and try and answer questions and put ourselves out there. And there was some fantastic staff when I was at university back in the 90s who really pushed us to think of ourselves as thinkers, reflectors, and people who would take action. Now, it didn't always play out as an easy journey in practice, actually, because sometimes the ideas that we took to practice were a bit alien to that world, and we sometimes had challenges as students in making the two worlds meet. But I was supported as a student by a particular nurse academic who worked at Edinburgh at the time, Dr. Sheila Rogers, who led a research module. And at the time, I'd never heard of research. I'd never heard of nursing research. And Dr. Sheila Rogers, she might be professor now, I apologise, would sit on the desk telling us about wound care research and the nurse's role in leading wound care research and all other types of research. And at the time, I was quite mystified, but also fascinated about this idea that nurses could develop new knowledge, new evidence, and actually lead to changes in practice. And I thought it was absolutely amazing. So we had some faculty staff who were real role models for the nurse as a leader in research. A midwifery researcher, Rosemary Mander, also had a massive impact on all of us, the research that she was doing in relation to families and children. So as a student nurse, I had some great academic role models who were actively teaching, practicing, researching, who shared their knowledge and wisdom with us. We were right at the beginning of our journeys. Some of us carried on in that direction, others went in other directions. At the same time, I was doing a lot of placements as a student, particularly nursing older people in hospital. And I remember at the time thinking something's not right here for the patients in hospital. I used to be really anxious about what I saw in hospital. I had two elderly grandparents, and I thought, well, you know, they've got great lives. I don't want them to end up in hospital. And that was quite a sad state of affairs as a student nurse. But I was really interested in rehabilitation at that time and how to get people home. What could the nurse do to support older people to get back where they wanted to be? So I had this kind of sense of unease as a student nurse, and not an easy place to be, actually. Early on in my career, I had a back injury, undertaking care. And again, that was a real turning point for me, that I asked myself a lot of questions. I can't be the only one who's had a back injury. I started to learn more about back injury and nursing and the challenges of our profession and the work of care. And looking back, I was worried about compassion. Where was that in practice? In spades for some people. Some of the nurses I worked with were incredible. They showed me great compassion. They showed patients and families great compassion. I also saw incidences where I was genuinely concerned that we'd lost our way. So my early inspirations weren't always comfortable, but I look back now and they did shape my journey and my desire to get into research. So how did it really happen? Because how does anybody begin with research? Well, everybody's journey is different. So what happened with me? So next slide, please. So my early research in nursing was really supported by some amazing mentorship. And I would really say anybody out there beginning their research career, find someone who will help you and support you. It doesn't have to be your own profession. It could be anybody who's passionate about research, passionate about asking questions and trying to find solutions, making a difference. So my dissertation for my first degree was around occupational socialisation and patient handling. And I'd had my back injury at that point. And I was really interested in how that happens and what happens as you become a member of this profession. a profession I was really proud of and still am. It was not a primary research dissertation. It was a literature-based dissertation, but fantastic skills development actually to understand the literature and the evidence base. I went on then to work as a nurse in surgical, in neuro, in high dependency unit, and I was still really fascinated in this topic of patient handling, occupational socialization, and rehabilitation, particularly after I'd worked in neuro and high dependency unit. I really wanted to know what happens next for some of the patients that we look after. Later on, I got the chance to do my master's in research, and I did a systematized review on mobility rehabilitation. I was really interested in how nurses could enable people to achieve their full potential. How could we balance the need for safety with the need for rehabilitation, and where does fear of injury for the nurse play into this? So it was a very interesting piece of research, again, literature based, but I really wanted to do something that was collecting primary data. I later got the chance to do my PhD, and I actually collected qualitative and interview-based data and observational data in practice all around mobility rehabilitation. So you can see a bit of a theme here. My early experiences as a nurse led to this real interest in a really core aspect of nursing care within an acute setting, because that's where I came from. Since that time, I've gone on to work in academia as an educator, a teacher, a leader, and done quite a few projects. But one of the ones that really stuck for me was when we got the chance to explore compassion in practice, and how that could influence what we do in practice. What I'm looking for is an opportunity to carry on with the idea of mobility rehabilitation and compassion, and find a way to balance that into a really amazing project. But what I want to say is, throughout all this time, mentorship's been the main driver. People who've supported me, encouraged me, and taught me new skills, and encouraged me to carry on with nursing research. So if we move on to the next slide, what I want to talk about now is, obviously, over my career, I've had lots of roles. Through academia, becoming a teacher, an educator, and a leader in education. But now my role is as a leader in research. And what I still keep close to my heart is that I began as a nurse, and I'm still a nurse. And you'll see here with the Centre for Care Excellence, this is a development that I'm leading with colleagues in university hospitals, Coventry and Warwickshire. And this is about helping clinicians, practitioners from nursing, midwifery and allied health to develop clinical academic careers. For me, I was kind of forced down one route of going into the university. It was very difficult to combine with clinical practice and actually make that headway. And what we're trying to do with our Centre for Care Excellence is enable practitioners to combine research and clinical practice and education to lead for impact. So you'll see there at the top, I've got this word impact, because I think one of the biggest challenges is doing research that makes an impact and leads to change in practice. The Centre for Care Excellence is a vehicle between the university and our large partner, the Acute Trust, to create opportunities for clinical academic careers, for clinicians to lead and drive clinically based research that will have a direct impact on the patient experience and patient outcomes. And I think what's been really exciting for me so far, I'm still in the middle of my career, what's been really exciting is being able to create opportunities for nurses, midwives and AHPs who traditionally haven't had opportunity in research and haven't had the mentorship and support and the development perhaps. And through the Centre for Care Excellence, we're managing to turn that around, and already seeing huge amounts of change in practice and in the number of people involved in research. So I'm mindful that I only had sort of 5 minutes to speak, and I guess I'm going to finish now. I wanted to share some of my personal inspiration, personal journey, and maybe where that passion can take you. I hope you've enjoyed that quick whistle-stop tour.
Lovely, Rosie. Thank you so much. And that personal connection with Edinburgh.
I know.
How wonderful. I didn't realise, and I'm sure you probably remember Professor Tonks Fawcett.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Legend, yes. She's actually just in the opposite, and she's just left, sadly. Otherwise, she could have joined. Fascinating story and some key messages around mentorship, but I'm mindful that we are a little bit behind time and we want to make sure that everyone has got their opportunity. So we're going to move swiftly to Dr. Sally Pizarro, who's Professor of Midwifery, School of Nursing, Midwifery and Health, again at Coventry University. So a strong showing from Coventry today. Sally, lovely to see you again.
Hello.
We're delighted to welcome you. We know you've got something else to go to, so we've brought you up the agenda, and I'm going to kind of move swiftly on so that you can give us your presentation. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, and sorry I have to dash off. It's a very busy day, and I thought I was just coming in for an informal chat, and now I've got 5 minutes to kind of give my presentation. But I always like to represent midwives at these things, because I work with a lot of nurses, and really interdisciplinarity is kind of key to everything I do. But then I think it's really important to make sure that midwives are represented when we're talking about research. Now my kind of professional journey started out, I did a degree in media and popular culture with theatre, so it's very different to midwifery. But when I started midwifery, clinically practicing, all I kept doing was seeing things that needed to change, things that were being done that weren't evidence-based, and every time I would say, oh, can we change that, can we think about this differently, they'd say, where's the evidence, where's the evidence? So I thought, right, I need to get down with this evidence stuff, and if it's not there, generate it myself. So again, like Rosie said, really thinking about people who could teach me new skills, help me to gather my own evidence and research, and formulate plans and thinking in order to make change happen was really important throughout my career. But of course, there are so many things that need changing and need improving that, you know, I often get sidetracked like a magpie, thinking about different opportunities with different communities to work with them. But in terms of mentorship, it really is about finding people you can learn from, and not waiting for permission to do something, but saying, I can lead that, I can do that. And stepping up and doing it yourself has always been something that I've been the privilege to be able to do, really, and then have people around me to support me with skills I don't have or yet to have, in terms of bringing that forward. And then I get to mentor other people as I lead, because when I lead, I share with others how I've done it, because no one knows what they're doing all of the time. You're navigating your way through things all of the time. And every time I do something or embark on something new, or a journal editor challenges me to bring more theory to my work, or something I'm really out of my comfort zone with, I take on that challenge, really, and try and pass that on to others. And there aren't many midwives, or as many midwives in research. We don't see as many midwives there, but there are amazing midwifery researchers all around the world that I'm connecting with all of the time. And that really inspires me to go on and think about what I can achieve and where my legacy will be, and all of our legacies as we go through the research journey, and start thinking about what we do and where we're going. And a lot of my research focuses on workforce research. So again, everyone wants better patient care or better things to happen in practice. But really, if you don't invest in the workforce, whatever interventions you have may be compromised by a workforce that's not able to deliver them in optimized ways, or doesn't have the professional identity or security or education or leadership in place that can really make things happen. So a lot of my research is focused on the workforce, but also the way that maternity services are changing. So who's using our services? We have a lot of the trans community wanting to birth and use our services, but we're very women-centered. So how do we navigate it when people don't identify as women, but they're having babies with us? So those kind of complex, wicked problems almost have the ability to be solved by research. But what evidence is needed to be gathered, and how do we implement that evidence and speed up the process of getting research into our teaching programs, into our clinical areas. And research inspired teaching, or research enriched learning, has been something I've been very focused on for quite some time, where I think about all this great research we're generating. Where is it going, and what is it doing? And how does it permeate through how we teach our students and how we teach our clinicians, and give them kind of their practice education in terms of speeding up the skills and making sure everyone's up to date with how things are moving forward, and bridging that gap, really, because the gaps from research to practice are way too wide, way too big. And how do we bridge that nexus? So I've done a lot of thinking around there, and hopefully working with Rosie in the Centre for Care Excellence has been really inspiring, and we hope to go on doing things in compassion, and especially workplace compassion I've looked at, in terms of thinking about how we be kind to each other in a kind of troubling service or troubling healthcare environment, where perhaps it's not always psychologically safe for us to work and be, for how we need to be in terms of delivering the best available care. So that's something we've really been working on. But really, what I wanted to kind of share with you today is the kind of I hope the inspiration to move forward in our journeys, and thinking about how we put midwives in focus going forward, in terms of how we think about them being in leadership posts, being in research areas where they need to be in decision-making roles. So thinking about how we get them there, and how we upskill the workforce globally. And through the Nursing Now Challenge, I've been speaking to many midwives around the world about how we do that, and the problems around the world we're facing in the midwifery profession, and then how we navigate through those, as we look to kind of work with nurses, but also within our own capacity as midwives, thinking about how we separate out and really carve out identities for ourselves, and show that strong representation, instantiating who we are and where we're going in terms of research, leadership, and clinical care. So I'm just checking if there's any questions in the chat. I don't think there are. I'm going to have to go. My dog.
Yeah,
because I'm going to have to pop. But that was a really whistle-stop tour of what I had to share. So sorry about that.
Well, it was certainly informative and wonderful to hear from a midwife, and Sally is a huge and great advocate. I've had the privilege of being engaged with her over the last few months through the Nursing Now campaign and the challenge, and she's definitely up there and out there. So I'm sure if anybody wants to reach out to her after, I know she's got to go, please do that. We'll be able to connect you. Some great messages, Sally, there around data and not waiting for permission, stepping up, people around you to support you, looking at workforce, looking at service, research and education. And I loved wicked problems solved by research, and upskilling globally. So a huge, great number of messages, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the programme.
Take care. Thank you. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So we are now, hopefully, fingers crossed, going to Aisha de la Hora, who is with the Global Research Nurse Coordinator. She's a Global Research Nurse Coordinator and Research Lead at the Global Health Network. Now, those of you who are eagle-eyed will have known that the agenda is taking a slightly different format, but that's because Aisha has had a little bit of technical issue with her sound. We're going to just test that out and see if we can hear her. Aisha, can you hear us?
Can you hear me?
Yes!
Oh, good. I managed to work it out. Thank God. Technology. I managed to beat technology. That's good.
Fantastic.
Oh, brilliant.
Yes, hooray.
Yes, good. And apologies for the trouble. And I know you've had to rearrange the
No,
speakers.
don't worry. We're delighted, Aisha. And again, I've had the pleasure of working with Aisha. We're developing some really interesting work together. So I'm at the start of a collaboration that hopefully maybe many of you will be able to be part of. But Aisha, your keynote is around the role of nurses and midwives in driving research, and that's really at the heart of the organisation that you are engaged with. So I'll let you share that knowledge and inspiration with the rest of the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. I think I've got some slides to share. Maybe Andrea or Hannah. Let's see. Well, I'm pleased that everyone can hear me. Brilliant. So everything, technology seems to be working well. I'm pleased. I'm very pleased. So now that you can all hear me well, good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are. And my name is Arantxa de la Horra. I'm a nurse and a midwife, and I coordinate global research nurses. And thank you for having the opportunity to be part of this event. And my presentation is about to explore the role of nurses and midwives in driving research. Next slide, please. So we are going to start looking at the nursing process. We always start off by assessing the situation. What need does the patient have, or what problem does the patient have, or what potential need or problem does the patient have? That's our assessment. Once we have assessed the situation, we move into the next stage. We plan what we are going to do about it. How are we going to intervene in this problem, or what strategy are we going to follow? That's our planning. And then when we have planned what we are going to do, then we do it. We intervene in some way, and that's the implementation stage. After we have carried out our implementation or our intervention, we evaluate how effective the intervention worked. Did it work? Didn't it work? And then the evaluation feeds back into the next round of assessment. The key thing that I would like you to notice is that when we implement our plans, we must be able to give a reason for carrying out that intervention. In other words, we need a rationale. Next slide, please. Now, if we've got a rationale, that means that we can be accountable for what we do, and it also means that we can optimize our practice. The next question is, what do we base our rationale on? Next slide, please. Thank you. Traditionally, rationales have just been based on practice. We used to say, we've always done it this way. The problem with practices is that they may be right or they may be wrong. Just because something is being done for a long period of time doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best thing to do. For example, hundreds of years ago, doctors used to bleed patients routinely, as the idea was that you had to get the badness out. While this might work for some rare polycythemic patients, it doesn't work for the most patients. So just because things are based on practice does not mean that they are wrong. They may be right. We can't just say we need a bit more information. Sometimes, next slide, please. We use common sense. That means that we apply principles. Principles, for example, of psychology, principles of physiology. While many common sense practices may be right, some may not be. For example, years ago, nursing students used to be taught to massage pressure areas really vigorously with soap and water, under the rationale that this would improve the blood supply and therefore the tissue viability. Now we know that if you massage the area, it's more likely to break down into a pressure sore than if you don't massage the area. And that what we should do is to relieve the pressure regularly. So even though it seemed to make sense, it was actually the wrong thing to do. And the problem is that our ability to understand how the body works is limited, and we can't always work it out using these principles or using common sense. Therefore, we should base our interventions on research findings. Next slide, please. Now, research has many advantages, and one is it can look at a large number of cases as opposed to basing our practice on individual experience. We may think that because one intervention worked for one patient is going to work for the next patient, and that's not necessarily true. Research can look at a whole number of patients and try to find out what is true in the general situation. Then we apply that what is true in the general situation to our specific situation, and that's more likely to work. Research-based rationales give us the correct intervention because it's based on a logical process that is being employed to work out what the best thing to do is. Next slide, please. But research is not just important in informing our decision-making for nursing care. Research helps solidify nursing and midwifery as a profession. For a profession to be recognized as such, it has to have its own body of knowledge. And for many years, nursing and midwifery struggled to be recognized as professions. Evidence from research influences and shapes the nursing profession, informs and underpins policy, professional decision-making, as we've been talking about, and nursing actions. Research is the key to advance and improve our practice. And the fact that we nurses and midwives, we are the health professional group that spends the most time by the patient's side, puts us in the perfect position to identify the gaps in care and to pursue the answers to most of the most important research questions around care. And also keeping in mind the nurses and midwives collectively, we are the largest healthcare professional group that makes nursing research has the potential to revolutionize healthcare. So we've got a lot of power there. Next slide, please. How can you get involved in research? So there are many ways that the nurses and midwives can engage in research. At a minimum, we should all be consumers of research. And that could mean reading papers, keeping up to date with the latest evidence-based practice, setting up research clubs with your colleagues that you could meet regularly to discuss and critique research papers, discussing the implications of new research findings with your patients as well, bring them into the loop. And at the other end of the scale, nurses and midwives must be the producers of nursing research, designing and leading the research studies. Next slide, please. So how can we help you to get involved in research? Here at Global Research Nurses, we support nurses and midwives to get involved and lead in research. Global Research Nurses is a community of practice, and our mission is to empower nurses and midwives to pursue a career that involves research, no matter where they work, no matter the specialty or where they work. And our ambition is to enable nursing and midwifery research leadership in low-resource settings. So our community of practice is led by regional coordinators who are research nurses based in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And these coordinators organize research capacity strengthening activities such as workshop, skill sharing activities, all in the regions. And we'll soon be advertising these roles. We are recruiting more, so watch this space. We also, as you can see on the image, we run annual grant awards. We run competitions, like the next one coming up is to fund the fees to cover the publishing fees of a paper. We also offer access to a professional development scheme that tracks and guides the nurses and midwifery professional development within health research by capturing training and the core competencies required in research. And also, as I mentioned, we will soon be recruiting more coordinators. And we are working now as well on a very exciting event that is going to happen this November in Cape Town, South Africa. That is the Burdett Symposium, potentially titled Connecting Excellence in Nursing Research. And this will be pre-event to the Global Health Network Conference 2022. And the exciting thing is we will be able to offer sponsored attendance. So also one more thing, as the Global Research Nurses is part of the Global Health Network, as a member you can access all the available resources across the network. So if you would like to benefit from any of these opportunities, just sign up, it's free. And you can also follow us on Twitter at the handle @GRNurses. I can send that on the chat. Next slide. So remember, nurses are best placed to identify the gaps in care, and nursing research has the potential to revolutionize healthcare. You can get involved in research in many ways, and we are here to support you. Thank you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Oh, wonderful. Arantxa, I think what we'll do is take the questions at the end because we're a little bit running behind, and I'm mindful that we have a few other colleagues waiting in the wings. But fantastic presentation, hugely informative, and thank you so much. I'm glad we're able to hear you. So moving swiftly on, we're going to hear from Akila J. Ama, who's a registered nurse and PhD candidate at the University of Leicester. I used to work there as a research nurse about 25, 30 years ago. So greetings to you, Akila, in Leicester. Are you able to present? And you have about 6 minutes.
Hope you can hear me. Hello.
Hi, we can hear you loud and clear. Yeah.
Okay, let me share my screen first. Can you see my screen as well?
Not quite yet, but hopefully we will be able to. Yes, super.
Right.
Thank you, Akila.
Excellent. Hello, everyone. I'm Akila Jayamaha, nurse educator at Carter International University, Sri Lanka. First of all, I must thank Nursing Now Challenge team for inviting me to share my experience as a nursing researcher from a country like Sri Lanka. So, very purpose of my talk today focus on my research experience as nurse, owners, researcher, owners, educator. I would like to start from beginning. It means pursuing bachelor's degree in nursing because that was made me a nurse. So I completed my bachelor's BSc honors in nursing degree in 2014, and then I started my career as a nursing officer. I was very keen to become nurse educator, so I search for the opportunities and pathways to advance my qualification to the master's level. And those days there were no actually there are no postgraduate degrees in nursing available in Sri Lanka, so I have to enroll any relevant master's program where I chose to enroll MSc in epidemiology. So I consider it as very important because I gain a lot of knowledge with regards to research and statistics as well. So with that qualification, I joined Khartoum International University in 2017 as nurse educator. After I joined KIU as a nurse educator, I had opportunity to involve in some student research projects, nursing student research project as a co-supervisor. So after 2 years, I joined KIU. I was fortunate enough to join Global Recharge Project as Sri Lankan research nurse, and then I become research lead in Sri Lanka as well. So ultimate aim of that project is to restore the health of the people with lung disease through the development of effective and culturally adapted pulmonary rehabilitation program, and to build the research capacity of the young generation or researchers. So with that, they offered me a position at University of Leicester in order to undertake distance learning PhD as a part of research training with NIHR Global Recharge Project. So I think and I believe this is the uh, start of my research journey, and so they provide me intense of research training and a lot of experience, as well as a lot of they build me a researcher now who I am. So, and my research mainly focus on 24-hour physical behavior, which means physical activity, sedentary behavior, and sleep quality. I have published and communicate numerous research articles in peer-reviewed journals and national and international research arenas such as ERS, IPCRG, such as. So I won the KIU Outstanding Researcher in 2021, and also I was the winner of International Nurses Day 2020 Nursing Now Challenge Award for the research as well. So I have supervised more than 20 nursing undergraduate research projects so far, and I have contributed to building up the research capacity of 2,000 undergraduates in Sri Lanka so far. So when we discuss about the research, always nursing undergraduate questions, and also I have same question within me: why do nurses need research, right? So then I uh, quietly dig through the literature and uh, discuss with experts uh, with regards to why research need so nurses need research. So usually in Sri Lankan nurses, traditional research is not their traditional responsibilities. They are more involved in direct patient care or administrative approaches in related to healthcare system. So when I dig through the literature, I found this fascinating detail with regards to the Florence Nightingale. So she was the first nurse researcher, and her research focused on soldiers' morbidity and mortality during the Crimean War in 1850s. And Nightingale identified research questions and systematically collect the data and try to find out the answers to those problems. So research eventually leads to changes in the environment of sick people, including cleanliness, environment, and adequate diet, so on. And also, she was able to look at the data, draw conclusions. She created this particular diagram which called coxcomb. Then eventually uh, become the pie chart. So we commonly use now these days we are commonly use the pie chart. So this is the first pie chart invented by the Florence Nightingale. So it means here you can see now it is embedded in nursing, or research is embedded in nursing. So uh, we are a part of nurses because it is embedded in nursing as well. And also Politan Beg define nursing research as systematic inquiry designed to develop knowledge about importance to nurses, including nurses practice, education, and nursing administration. By doing research, by applying research, we can not only improve the practice but also education and the administration as well. So I also like to discuss about the strength and barriers that I have faced during my research career as a nurse. So first of all, I think attitude is the most powerful tool to become a researcher, right? So if you have the proper attitude towards the research, you can become a researcher even with a great responsibilities as a nursing officer, right? So, and also time management. I know that most of the nurses are really struggle with the time. You don't have the time to do research and do for patient care and involving day-to-day responsibilities as well. But I succeeded to manage my time by doing my education and by doing my responsibilities as nurse educate, as also nurse research. And also capacity building is knowledge regarding research process, research methodology, and statistics is really vital, right? So I was fortunate enough to gain a lot of knowledge, lot of uh, help from the global research project. So I must thank them to providing with this research capacity building. And also resources are really important. And also COVID pandemic, if I share my experience with regards to COVID pandemic, it hits, it's hampered a lot of research activities that we have planned to conduct. Even today we are struggling with starting the PR for the Sri Lankan people because a lot of practical problems. So, yep.
Akila, oh, super. I was just going to say you're just about out of time, but I see you're doing your references. That's fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and wonderful to hear about Sri Lanka. We do a lot of work there, and I've been quite a few times. So great. We'll keep the questions till the end. We want to keep going to our last speaker, who is Dr. Janine Blake. Hopefully, that's maybe the first time you've been introduced with your proper title in this forum. So, Dr. Blake, please take the floor.
Thank you, Aisha. I don't know. I'm not seeing myself on the main screen yet. There I am. Hello, everyone. As Aisha said, I am Dr. Janine Blake. It's certainly the first time I've introduced myself that way. So I recently received my PhD in nursing science from the University of Massachusetts Amherst here in the United States. I'm in Connecticut right now. And I am very soon beginning a postdoctoral research fellowship, actually in engineering, in the Elaine Merib Center for Nursing and Engineering Innovation, which is also at UMass Amherst. I'm very fortunate to have wonderful mentorship, which I'll talk a little bit about. I saw that there was a question in the Q&A about how to find a good mentor. I'll try to touch on that for a moment. But I've been mentored by a phenomenal nurse, and I'm going to transition into under the mentorship of an engineer who was actually really supportive of my PhD work. And so I'm going to spend my time today talking a little bit about how I got here. And then I want to talk about how folks who are nurses and clinicians can get involved in research to the full gamut of the opportunities. So prior to becoming a full-time nurse researcher, I was a registered nurse in a really fast-paced surgical intensive care unit. And upon entering practice, I quickly learned that the critical care environment is filled with challenges. Every day, nurses walk onto the unit, critical care or otherwise, we're troubleshooting and innovating. And every single day, it's just part of our job. And it's part of what we do to try to meet the needs, the care needs of patients and their families. Excuse me. And one thing that I became really kind of frustrated with was that the technology and products that we were provided, although, you know, they were developed by these big companies and a lot of money was invested, they seemed to be designed by people who had little or no understanding of how they needed to be used at the bedside. And one piece of equipment I became intimately familiar with are the intravenous smart pumps that are used to deliver really high risk and fast acting medications to these critically ill patients. And when I was a nurse, they worked only okay, right? I did feel that I could rely on them to deliver the medications properly, but there were frequently challenges that kind of got in our way of being able to give our full attention to our patients. And I knew this while I was practicing, but it wasn't until I got into, I started my graduate career, which was really just the right path for me. At some point during my bedside practice, I decided that I kind of missed formal education and it was time for me to go back. I started not entirely knowing what I wanted to do. I thought I wanted a clinical doctorate, but it turns out that I was really meant for a research doctorate. And if anyone wants to reach out to me to talk about that, I'm more than happy to discuss. But as a graduate student at UMass Amherst, I linked up with a woman who is now a phenomenal colleague and a true mentor for life. And we had a lot of common interest. And that's really what made our partnership such a great working relationship, was that we got excited about the same kinds of things. And she was also a huge advocate for me and would really help me through a thought process. She wouldn't tell me what to do. She wouldn't tell me how to do it. She would just guide me through how to get to that place myself. And now I'm much more independent than I think I would have been if she had not done that. But she taught me that these IV smart pumps that we were using really aren't as great as we thought they were. And one thing that I kind of took from that, this was part of her research, but I really took an arm of it that has led me into the engineering space, where I started learning about flow rate accuracy. And that wasn't what she was studying, but she had a passion for the safety of these devices and really empowered me to take that part on my own. And it turns out that these pumps really aren't as accurate as we as clinicians at the bedside think they are. And that's where my research is taking me. And so my program of research is focused on IV smart pumps, but it's just one example of how the experience of nurses and clinicians is so vital to product development, to improving patient safety. And if I can get anything across in my talk, it's that as nurses, we have a voice that is really, really valuable. So I have become a full-time nurse researcher, but I rely on bedside clinicians and people working at the front lines with patients to inform my research. My research, when the overarching goal is it clinically relevant? I don't want to do research that isn't going to make an impact on nurses, patients, their families. And to know about clinical relevance, I'm just a couple of years away from being at the bedside myself. So I can still lean on some of my experience, but as I get away from that, I really need clinicians who are interested in collaborating with me to help inform the research that I'm doing. And I work with a couple now who are interested in research, but they want to stay patient care oriented. And that's awesome. But we can publish papers together, we can do research together, we can present together, and they can still be at the bedside, but they are an integral role to that research. And I think that's really important to come away with. Although I took a path of like what Arancha had, that wonderful, minimum research involvement to maximum research involvement. I'm at the maximum, and certainly the minimum, I totally agree with her of really staying up to date on your research. But I also think that there's a middle ground. Like Kayla, an ICU nurse I work with all the time, who, like I said, we collaborate. And nurses all across the world can collaborate, whether you're filling out surveys, showing interest, or just reaching out to researchers who are working on something that you're interested in. So I hope that if you take anything away, please be curious, challenge the status quo.
Fantastic way to conclude the session. Really interesting, innovation, entrepreneurship, fantastic. Let's move straight over to Mark for the Q&A because we've got a lot of questions and very little time. Thank you, speakers.
Thank you very much. And I've just posted in the chat and just want to reiterate the excellent questions that have been posed to our speakers. So I think there's been a number of themes that have come up quite consistently across these talks. And so I think with time, we'll focus probably on the one that seems to have been the most prominent, which is about mentorship. So we have a question from Zipporah Iregi. I'm curious to find out, how does one go about picking the right mentor or supervisor for you, besides the fact that they are well versed in that particular research area? So that's open to any of our speakers. Anyone wants to jump in and contribute to that question?
I can start. So like I said, I think that a mentor, like it was said in the question, to be interested in what you're interested in is really important. But also finding the right mentor who you connect with, you may find because of that, that there's something they are interested in that you didn't know you were interested in. And so just keep an open mind about that. But it's also okay to switch mentors. We have PhD candidates who are switching advisors because the first one that they chose because they needed to pick somebody and it just wasn't the right fit. So just be patient, keep your mind open, and try to find the right fit, not only for your research interests, but also for your personality.
That's a great point. Anyone else like to add anything to that?
I would say often the best mentors aren't formal mentors. They're just people you meet who are supportive, encouraging, and generally nice people without a massive ego. So I've had some amazing mentors through my career, actually from a range of professions and backgrounds. And I think Janine's right. Keep your mind open. And when you find someone who's supportive and knowledgeable, or can point you in the right direction if they can't advise you, that's gold dust.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I think what will happen, just because of time, is all the questions that have been put forward are all really interesting questions, and we probably could have another hour going through those quite happily. So I think what we'll do is we'll endeavour to answer all of those questions online following the session and throughout the rest of the workshops and sessions that are being held, if that's okay. But thank you to everyone who did post the questions. They're incredibly thought-provoking and challenging. So it may take a little bit of time I think, to formulate some of the answers, because they're very big, important questions, but great to receive. So I'll hand back over now for closing statements.
Thank you, Mark. That was lovely. And I mean, fantastic presentations, a real great variety and spread, some really great questions. So I'm really pleased, as Mark has said, that we will be answering those questions. A huge thank you to all our speakers who have taken the time to put together this slide, reflect and share with you their stories about the importance of research, what it means to them, their journey, and how you can hopefully aspire and become a nurse researcher with your own program of work to change patient care experience and the world, really. Thank you to Hannah and Andrea for putting this together. And I've already reached out to some people. Please contact the speakers if you want to find out more. And good luck with the rest of this afternoon's sessions. Wonderful to meet you all. Great to see some familiar faces from yesterday. And thank you so much for joining. Take care. Bye.